Do you sleep with the Rosary in your hand? There is a deep mystery that very few people truly understand, a spiritual secret that is rarely spoken about, even from the pulpit, even within the Church itself. But that was lived by saints and revealed by Padre Pio. And what he said about it could completely change the way you sleep, and even the path of your soul. Because here is the truth. When you close your eyes, the spiritual world does not close with you. While your body rests, your soul remains present and sensitive, and even more open than it is during the day. And maybe you've already felt this, without knowing what it was. Those nights when you wake up exhausted after hours of sleep. That strange restlessness with no clear reason. Those dreams that felt like more than just dreams. That subtle unease that follows you into the morning, like a shadow you can't shake. That is not random. And Padre Pio knew exactly why it happens. Before we go any further, if you believe in the power of Padre Pio's intercession, write in the comments right now. Padre Pio, protect my sleep. Let that be your first act of faith today. Stay until the end, because what Padre Pio revealed about what truly happens to the soul during the night is something most people have never been told. And once you understand it, you will never think about sleep the same way again. There is a reason why throughout Scripture God chose the night to speak, not the afternoon, not the busy morning hours, the night. He spoke to Jacob in a dream, showing him a ladder that reached the heavens, and Jacob woke up saying something that has stayed in the memory of the Church for thousands of years. Surely God was in this place, and I did not know it. He spoke to Joseph through visions that changed the course of an entire people. He spoke to Samuel in the stillness of a dark room, calling his name so gently that the boy didn't even recognize it as God at first. The night has always been a time of encounter, not emptiness, not just physical recovery, a space where the noise of the world falls away and something deeper becomes possible. But here is the tension that Padre Pio never let people ignore. The same openness that makes the soul receptive to grace also makes it vulnerable to disturbance. And this is the part most people are never told. The night is not spiritually neutral. It never was. Padre Pio spoke about this with a directness that surprised even those who considered themselves spiritually mature. He said that many souls experience their deepest struggles not in the chaos of the day, but in the silence of the night. Not through dramatic events, not through anything that could be easily named or explained, but through a slow, quiet erosion. A restlessness that builds without a cause. An anxiety that arrives at bedtime like an uninvited guest who refuses to leave. A heaviness that greets you in the morning even after 8 hours of sleep, as if you worked through the night without knowing it. He believed the soul in its openness during rest can be touched by grace, but can also be unsettled by what he described as spiritual interference. Not theatrical, not the way popular culture imagines it, but subtle, consistent, working through the interior life, through the imagination, through those fragile half-conscious moments between waking and sleep, where we are neither fully present nor fully gone. Stop for a moment. How many people do you know who sleep badly? Who wake up tired? Who carry a low-level anxiety that has no obvious source? It is far more common than we admit. And Padre Pio was already speaking about its spiritual dimension decades before anyone had words like sleep disorder or chronic stress. He saw it for what it often was, a soul that had been left unprotected at the threshold of the night. And his answer was always the same: the Rosary. Not as a superstition, not as a ritual performed out of obligation, but as something Padre Pio described with a word that might surprise you. He called it a weapon, not in an aggressive sense, but in the sense of something that actively protects, something that creates a kind of shelter around the soul that is not visible, but is absolutely real. Think about what the Rosary actually is for a moment, not as an object, but as a practice. It is a rhythm of prayer, a return again and again to the same truth, to the same presence. Each Hail Mary is not empty repetition. It is the soul anchoring itself, finding the same shore after drifting, saying once more with the lips and eventually with the whole heart, I remember who I belong to. Padre Pio carried his rosary at all times. Those who lived and worked alongside him said he was rarely seen without it in his hands, even during conversations, even between masses, even during the brief hours he allowed himself to sleep. And the counsel he gave to the thousands of souls who came to him broken, lost, afraid, grieving, it almost always included the same instruction: pray the rosary, not as the only answer, but as a foundation, as the daily practice that keeps the soul oriented toward what is true. He said that Mary, when called upon through the rosary, does not delay. She intercedes. She places herself, with a mother's instinct, between the soul and whatever threatens it. And he believed, from personal experience, not just theology, that this protection becomes especially powerful during the night, during sleep, during those hours when we are least able to defend ourselves. Now hold that thought for a moment. If the soul is more open during sleep, if the night carries a spiritual weight that most of us have simply never been taught to take seriously, then what we carry into that darkness matters more than we think. There was a man, a father of 3, a quiet man who described himself as a lukewarm Catholic for most of his adult life, who began sleeping with his rosary after his youngest daughter gave him one she had blessed at a shrine. He didn't do it out of deep conviction. He did it, honestly, because she asked him to, and he didn't want to disappoint her. He placed the rosary on his nightstand, and one night, almost without thinking, he picked it up and held it as he fell asleep. He said that what happened over the following weeks was not dramatic. There was no vision, no voice, no moment he could point to and say, "That was it." But something shifted. The nightmares that had been visiting him for years, rooted in a period of real darkness in his past, began to fade. Not immediately, not all at once, but gradually, the way a room brightens when someone slowly opens the shutters. He told a priest in confession that he felt, for the first time in years, that his nights belonged to him again, that the darkness had become quiet, that he was sleeping finally like a man at peace. He still holds the rosary every night, years later. That kind of change doesn't come from an object. It comes from what the object represents and from the disposition of the soul that holds it. It comes from grace, quiet, patient, persistent grace, working in the hidden hours of the night. And this is exactly what Padre Pio pointed to when he spoke about the soul during sleep. When you hold the rosary as you fall asleep, you are doing something that goes beyond words. Because you may be too tired for long prayers, you may not have the energy for a full examination of conscience or a structured devotion, but your hands remember. Your hands can hold what your mind is too exhausted to articulate. And that simple physical act, fingers wrapped around beads that have passed through decades of prayer, carries an intention that the soul understands even when the conscious mind is already drifting. You're saying, without saying anything, "I belong to God. I entrust this night to Mary. Whatever happens in this darkness, I am not alone in it." The soul hears that. The soul responds to that. Padre Pio taught that spiritual habits form the interior life in ways we cannot always observe directly. We don't see the change as it happens. It is like the slow work of water on stone, invisible in the moment, undeniable over time. The practice of sleeping with the rosary night after night teaches the soul something that cannot be taught any other way. It teaches trust. It teaches surrender. It teaches the soul to rest, not just physically, but completely. To lay down not only the body, but the fears, the unresolved tensions, the burdens that have no easy answer. And if we are honest, that is the hardest thing most of us are asked to do. We are people who hold on. We hold on to our problems, turning them over in our minds as we lie in the dark. We hold on to our fears, rehearsing worst-case scenarios with a thoroughness that would impress any strategist. We hold on to our resentments, replaying conversations that hurt us, sharpening our responses to people who will never hear them. We hold on to our need to control what comes next, as if the right amount of mental rehearsal could guarantee that tomorrow goes according to plan. The rosary held in the hand as sleep approaches is a quiet invitation to release all of that, not into a void, not into uncertainty, but into the hands of a mother who has never stopped interceding for her children, and into the care of a God who, as the psalmist wrote with quiet confidence, grants sleep to those he loves. But Padre Pio was also clear, and this matters, so stay with it for a moment, that the Rosary is not a charm. It is not a spiritual shortcut. It is not something that works automatically, regardless of the life being lived around it. Holding a Rosary while carrying a heart close to God is not protection, it is contradiction. A gentle one. God is never indifferent to even the smallest gesture of faith, but a contradiction nonetheless. The Rosary has power because of what it connects us to, and that connection asks something in return, not perfection. Padre Pio knew better than most what it meant to be human, to struggle, to fall and get up again. What it asks is sincerity, a genuine turning of the heart, however imperfect, however slow, toward God. This is why he always spoke of the Rosary alongside other practices. Confession, which he called the sacrament that renews the soul from the inside out, the Eucharist, and the daily examination of conscience, which he considered essential and which takes no more than 5 minutes but changes everything about how a person ends their day. Here is what he encouraged, and it is simpler than most people expect. Before you lie down, take a few quiet minutes, not for a complicated prayer routine, just for honesty. Look back at your day the way you might look back at a path you've walked, not to judge every step, but to notice where you lost your footing. Where did I close my heart today? Where was I less patient than I could have been? Where do I need to ask forgiveness from God, from someone I love, from myself? Don't carry that weight into the night. Give it to God. Say it simply in your own words, the way you would speak to someone who knows you completely and loves you anyway, because that is exactly who you are speaking to. If you have holy water at home, use it. Make the sign of the cross. Ask God's blessing over your room, your sleep, the space where you are most vulnerable. This is not superstition. It is one of the oldest practices of the Church, the sanctification of ordinary spaces, the quiet insistence that the sacred is not confined to a building but is present wherever we invite it. Then take the Rosary. You don't have to pray the full 15 or 20 decades. One decade, prayed slowly, really slowly, letting each word mean something, is enough to shift something in the soul. And if you fall asleep mid-prayer, don't worry. Padre Pio said this with a warmth that people remembered. Mary understands. She takes the intention. She receives the effort. She is not a god of perfect performances. She is a mother. Hold the Rosary as you lie down. Let your hands rest around it naturally, and say in whatever words come most easily, Lord, I place my soul in your hands tonight. Mary, watch over my sleep. Whatever does not come from God, keep it far from me. That is enough. That is genuinely, completely enough. Because now we arrive at the part of Padre Pio's teaching that is perhaps the least talked about and the most extraordinary. He believed that God visits souls during sleep, not in the extraordinary headline-making sense. Not every dream is a mystical vision, and Padre Pio was always careful to discourage spiritual sensationalism. But in the quiet, ordinary sense that is actually more remarkable than any vision, the sense of a presence, a peace that settles in without explanation, a clarity that arrives with the morning, as if something was resolved overnight that couldn't be resolved during the day. A direction that comes to you softly without fanfare, the way light comes through a window before anyone else in the house is awake. Padre Pio believed this was far more common than people realized, and he believed it happened most often, not to the most spiritually advanced, not to those with years of formal prayer behind them, but to souls who were simply prepared. Souls who had ended the day honestly, who had asked forgiveness for what needed forgiving, who had held the Rosary and said, in whatever imperfect way, I'm yours tonight. Do with this night what I cannot do for myself. When the soul is at rest and at peace, placed under God's care and Mary's intercession, it becomes receptive in a way that is simply not available during the busy, defended hours of daylight. The walls come down, the noise stops, and God, who is never absent, who is always closer than we think, takes those hours seriously. Maybe you have already experienced this without knowing what to call it. A morning where you woke up and something felt genuinely different, not euphoric, not dramatic, but lighter, clearer, as if a decision you had been agonizing over had somehow sorted itself overnight. A night where a dream carried something that stayed with you, not as an image that faded by breakfast, but as a feeling, a direction, a quiet certainty about something that had seemed uncertain the night before. A moment in the early hours, somewhere between sleep and waking, where you felt a presence so calm and so close that it almost surprised you. These things are not nothing. They are not the random noise of an overworked brain. They are the ordinary fruit of a soul that has, over time, learned to rest in God. And they are available to you, not as a reward for spiritual achievement, not for the especially devout or the especially disciplined, for anyone willing to end the day with honesty and begin the night with trust. So here is the invitation, and it is as simple as it sounds. Tonight, do something different. Take your rosary. Pray 1 decade before you sleep, not rushed, not mechanical, but present. Let each Hail Mary be an act of trust rather than an obligation. Then hold the rosary as you lie down. Make that small, quiet act of surrender. Give your night to God. Try it for 7 days, 7 nights, and pay attention, not with anxious scrutiny looking for results the way you might track a medication, but with the open, gentle attention of someone who has placed something in good hands and is simply watching to see what happens. Pay attention to your sleep, to your dreams, to how you feel when you wake up, to your peace, to the quality of your thoughts in the first moments of the morning. You may be surprised by what you notice. And if something shifts, even something small, even something you're not quite sure how to name, come back and write it here. Write in the comments, "I surrender my sleep to God." Not as a formula, as a declaration, because there is something powerful about putting words to a decision, even in a comment, even among strangers. It makes it more real. It commits the soul in a way that silent intention sometimes doesn't. If this reflection touched something in you today, please share it. Not because this channel needs the numbers, but because you probably know someone who struggles with their nights, someone whose sleep is restless and whose mornings are heavy, someone who carries anxiety into the dark and can't seem to leave it there, a friend, a parent, a sibling. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to pass along something that brought us peace. Send them this video. Let them find their way to it. And if this kind of content, rooted in faith, in the depth of the Catholic tradition, in the real and human wisdom that Padre Pio carried, if this is what you come here for, then please subscribe. Leave a like on this video. Consider becoming a member of this community. Everything shared here exists for one reason: to help souls find their way back to peace, to God, and to each other. Your support makes that possible, and it matters more than you know, because every soul this reaches is one more person who goes to sleep tonight a little less alone. Leave the last word to Padre Pio. He said it simply, the way all the deepest truths are simple. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Not because the night is always easy, not because the darkness never feels long, but because worry in the end adds nothing to the morning. And prayer, quiet, faithful, held in the hands even when the words run out, changes something that nothing else can reach. Your soul is not alone in the dark, it never was. And tonight you can choose to remind it of that truth. Hold the rosary, close your eyes, and rest.